Hey legends, welcome back to Rock Legends, Bands, Tours and History, where we bring the wildest chapters of rock to life, one riff at a time. I'm your host, Lydia, and this is Too Proud to Rock, the challenge series where we dive into how the world's biggest bands reinvented themselves when everyone said they were done. John, great to have you back in the studio.
Lydia, it's always a pleasure. And today's topic, the Rolling Stones. Well, they practically wrote the playbook on reinvention, didn't they? I mean, we're talking about a band that has seen it all and then some.
Absolutely. Today's episode is titled The Rolling Stones Ain't Too Proud to Rock and Roll, and we're setting our dials back to 1974. The mood, John, is chaos. The mission, prove they're still kings of rock. We're going to find out how the Stones turned what many saw as disaster into defiance, and why that moment, that album, still resonates so powerfully 50 years later.
Chaos is an understatement. If you look at the early 70s for the Stones, it was a really rough patch. They were exhausted, truly running on fumes. Altamont was this huge, dark cloud that just wouldn't dissipate, hanging over their entire reputation. And then the drugs, well, they were a constant, debilitating presence, slowing everything down.
Exactly. You had Altamont in '69, a cultural wound that took years to even begin to scar over. Then you move into the early 70s, and while they were still putting out incredible music like Sticky Fingers and Exile on Main Street, the cost was palpable. Critically, Exile itself, despite being now revered as a masterpiece, was initially met with some very mixed, even harsh reviews. Some called it a drunken mess, a slurry of half-formed ideas.
Right. It's wild to think about that now, isn't it? That an album like Exile, which is so iconic, was seen as evidence of their decline at the time. It really tells you how high the stakes were and how much pressure they were under. It wasn't just about making another album. It was about proving their relevance, their very right to exist as the greatest rock and roll band in the world.
So fast forward a bit. Suddenly, 3 years after Exile in '74, It's Only Rock and Roll drops, and it's a very different beast. No fancy choirs, no Hollywood horns, none of the opulent arrangements that had started to creep into some of their contemporaries' work, or even their own earlier albums. This was, at its heart, just 5 guys in a Munich basement trying to remember why they loved rock and roll in the first place. It feels like hitting reset on fame itself, doesn't it?
Totally. It's like they stripped away all the layers of expectation and celebrity. Think about it. They're in Musicland Studios in Munich. It's not some glamorous LA or London studio. It's a basement. And that environment, I think, really forced them to get back to basics, to just play, to just be the Stones without all the external noise.
And you hear it in the music, John. Keith's riffs, suddenly they feel dangerous again. Raw, cutting, full of that signature swagger, but with an edge that hadn't been quite as prominent since maybe Beggar's Banquet. And Charlie's tempo shifts, they're just so intricate, so precise yet somehow loose, almost like a heartbeat guiding the whole chaotic symphony.
Oh, definitely. Charlie Watts was always the anchor, the quiet genius. But on this album, his drumming really underscores the whole raw and tight ethos. He's driving it, pushing it, but never overplaying. It's all about feel and groove. And then Mick Jagger on this album, he sounds like he just swallowed a shot of whiskey and decided to fight gravity. There's this undeniable hunger, this defiant snarl in his voice that's just irresistible.
That's such a great description. It's primal, isn't it? He's not just singing, he's almost spitting out the words, especially on tracks like the title song. And what's fascinating is that this album isn't perfect, not in the polished, pristine sense, and that, John, is exactly why it's magic.
Yeah, that's the real genius of it. You hear the rawness, the slight imperfections, and instead of thinking they messed up, you think, this is alive. It's like a live band in the studio, just captured in that moment. It's got grit, it's got soul, and it feels incredibly authentic. It feels like they're reclaiming something they might have felt was slipping away.
Let's talk about the recording process a bit. They went into Musicland Studios and a deliberate decision was made. No brass, no strings, no choirs. That stripped-back approach was foundational to the raw, tighter sound. It's like they were consciously shedding the excesses of the past, the expectations that had perhaps burdened them.
They were basically saying, forget what you think the Rolling Stones should be right now. This is who we are. And it was a necessary cleansing, I think. After the scale of tours, the sheer amount of work, and everything else going on, they needed to simplify. They needed to reconnect with the core of their sound, the blues rock foundation that made them legends in the first place.
And nothing encapsulates that feeling quite like their cover of The Temptations' Ain't Too Proud to Beg. When you hear their version, it's not just a cover, is it? It's a statement. Mick channels so much emotion, pain, hunger, ego, defiance. It's all there, bleeding through the speakers.
Oh, that track is iconic. It's almost audacious, isn't it, for the Rolling Stones to cover that song at that point. But Mick absolutely owns it. He infuses it with this incredible raw energy, a kind of desperation and arrogance all at once. It feels like he's begging, yes, but also demanding. You better listen to me.
Exactly. And the instrumentation on it, even the mistakes, and there are subtle ones, the slightly uneven bass, Keith's occasionally reckless chords, they don't detract. They make it feel alive. It's like hearing rebellion being rebuilt in real time, imperfections and all.
That's a brilliant way to put it. It's the human element. The idea that not everything has to be perfectly quantized or meticulously produced. Sometimes the cracks are where the light gets in, where the true character of a performance shines through. And the Stones, they've always understood that better than almost anyone.
And the critics at the time, some of them said they were sloppy. They heard those imperfections and labeled them as faults, but the Stones, in their infinite wisdom and swagger, basically said,
Exactly. Every rushed snare, every slightly off-key vocal, it feels like a middle finger to perfectionism, a rejection of the pristine, polished sound that was becoming more prevalent in the mid-70s. It was a conscious artistic choice to embrace that rawness. They weren't chasing trends, they were reinventing the reason they existed. They were reminding themselves, and the world, why they started playing music in the first place. It was about gut feeling, about energy, about the visceral thrill of rock and roll, not about how many layers of overdubs you could add.
And buried under all that distortion, under the driving rhythms and Mick's incredible vocals, is a profound message. Don't let anyone tell you you're past your prime. Don't let the critics, don't let the past, don't let even your own perceived exhaustion dictate your future. You can always hit reset. You can always find that fire again.
It's a powerful message, especially coming from a band like the Stones, who had already achieved so much. They could have coasted, they could have leaned into the celebrity, done more commercial things, but they chose to dig deeper, to find that raw nerve again. It's inspiring, really.
It truly is. And speaking of digging deeper, even Keith's name on some of the early releases flickers between Richard and Richards, like he can't quite decide who he is or who he wants to be. And maybe that's part of the beauty of this album too, the tension between control and collapse, between identity and reinvention.
That's a fascinating observation, Lydia. It speaks to that transitional period, doesn't it? Like they're all grappling with who they are as individuals and as a collective after years of intense highs and very public lows. It's almost like the name change on the album credits mirrors the internal struggle, the rebuilding process happening within the band itself.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about the music, it was about their very identity. Looking back, It's Only Rock and Roll sounds like the Stones learning to breathe again. It's them saying, we'll make the music messy if it means it's real, we'll choose authenticity over perfection. And that lesson, John, still matters so much today. Whether you're recording an album, building a YouTube channel, or just trying to find your rhythm again in your own life.
100%. It's a universal truth, isn't it? That sometimes when you're feeling lost or critiqued, the best thing you can do is strip away all the external expectations and just get back to what you love, what feels real and honest to you. The Stones gave us a masterclass in that with this album.
It's a blueprint for resilience, for artistic integrity, and it reminds us that true greatness often comes from pushing against the grain, from having the courage to be exactly who you are, messy bits and all. The Stones didn't just survive 1974, they redefined themselves, proving that they weren't just a historical act, but a force of nature, still capable of surprising everyone.
And that's why we still talk about it. It's not just a collection of songs, it's a moment, a turning point, where they looked the critics and their own demons in the eye and said, "Watch this."
Exactly right, John. What an incredible journey into the heart of the Rolling Stones' defiance. Thank you for that brilliant insight today.
Always a blast, Lydia. This era of the Stones is just so rich with stories.
Next week, listeners, we're stepping back to the psychedelic days, sitars, mellotrons, and the wild experiments that nearly broke the band. You absolutely do not want to miss that one. It's going to be a treat.
That's it for this episode of Too Proud to Rock, right here on Rock Legends 2025, the channel where every riff has a story and every legend gets one more encore.
If you love this dive into the Stones' rebirth, hit subscribe, tap like, and drop your favorite Rolling Stones track in the comments. We might feature your pick in the next episode.
Until then, keep your volume high, your heart louder, and remember, it's only rock and roll, but we like it.
Rock Legends, where bands never die, they just turn up louder.